And hi again, everyone joining in from the recording. Maybe as a quick intro as well, we are volunteer run. So if you are a speaker, if you have anything or something to say about, UX writing or content design, please feel free to reach out to us. We're always looking for new topics and new enthusiasts. And also, if you would like to sponsor us with a coffee, we do have a Ko-Fi page, which we'll link in the chat. Something else, organizational. So Jen and Tina are going to speak about how to get new tools for your team, for your UX writing team. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to just pop those questions into the chat. Lara, Tam, and I will be monitoring this chat, and we'll be collecting, gathering, curating all your questions and throwing them at Jen and Tina at the very end. So any questions, just pop them into the chat. Yeah, I think that's it. That's all I have to say for the beginning. And with that, without any further ado, I'm handing the stage over to Jen and Tina. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Lara, Fiona, and Tam for having us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
How's everyone doing? Let's hear it in the chat.
Doing great. Excited.
We are too. We like this topic.
Yes, someone just mentioned they're
starting
a new
way.
Yeah. Starting a new UX job soon. So
oh, that's very exciting.
Very exciting, yes.
Congrats. Well,
yeah, go ahead. We're going to talk about how to get new tools for your team, for your business. Hoping that this is just a little bit presentation and a lot of discussion. Really hoping I'm super eager to see what kind of questions and what kind of challenges people are experiencing in their own jobs. I mean, the best part for me usually about sessions like this is realizing that so many of us are struggling through so many of the same things, and we have so much stuff to share with each other.
Absolutely. So don't be shy. Use the chat.
Yeah, I'm Tina. Hey, I lead the content design and strategy team at Intuit, which right now is a team of about 55 content designers and content strategists. But I started there about 7 years ago with a team of about 10. They were all writers, no content strategists, no tools. And I realized that with a team that was that size and was likely to grow somewhat, that anytime we've got that many writers, we're going to need systems and processes and tools to keep us all in sync. And that was when I started the small content systems team within the content design team. And that included hiring brilliant Jen Schmich to run. She has since moved on and she can introduce herself now in her new role.
Yeah, thanks, Tina. Yeah, I used to work for Tina in person in an office. What seems like a long time ago, but I had a really great time at Intuit working on a lot of these problems, and I've since moved over to Spotify. I'm managing in the UX writing team, and we're really specifically focusing this year on a lot of these questions and trying to solve these problems around systems and tools. So it's definitely something I'm thinking a lot and doing a lot with these days. So here is a tool, right? Everyone knows this one. We've got Figma, probably look at it every day. But is this really the only tool that you need to deliver awesome content? Probably not. At work, they give us a lot of things to use, but they're mainly for product designers, right? So what about the needs that we have as writers specifically? Like if you look at Figma, does it check my grammar or spelling, or readability, or any special terminology we might use in our brand or our products? Does it help me reuse any content either so that I'm more effective? No. A lot of our needs are left out as writers, but sometimes we might go and find other tools like Google Docs, or we might be lucky and have a writing assistant or some sort of content management system. And not that one tool is going to solve every problem. I think it's just good to recognize that it takes several tools to cover all of our needs. And that takes a bit of work really to put it all together, bring them in and stay on top of them over time as your team changes and your content changes and your needs change.
In talking to content groups, whether inside my own team or in forums like this, and hearing from other content designers outside of my own job, I often hear the same issues and complaints. Number one, there isn't enough of us to get the work done. That's often also expressed as we need more writers. It seems to be the ubiquitous issue that every team has. And secondly, that no one else cares about the stuff that we care so much about: voice and tone and capitalization and punctuation and content errors that show up in the product, and poor quality writing and writing that is off voice and tone, off brand. No one seems to care about those things as much as we do. And no matter how much we pound on the table, we can't seem to get other people to care so much about them as we do. And even though today my team, has gone from 10 to around 50 or so, we still don't have enough people to do the work. So I have to accept that will be true forever. And also number two will be true forever, that the rest of the world probably won't care about the Oxford comma as much as we do. So to move forward, I need to accept that these things are true and that it's my job to work through these issues of scale and quality.
So, that's where tools can really come in and help. They are a thing. They can make our lives less painful, but it can be hard just to get the resources to buy them, or maybe even once we buy them, they don't always work the way we want. Maybe there's other teams like engineering that have more control over your tools, or they make all the decisions about the tools. Sometimes the tools can just get in our way, actually slow us down. So they're not so easy to deal with. And a lot of the times, I think we'll just end up with these really wacky workarounds, just trying to live with them. Or maybe we just give up. I think there's so many ways we can give up as writers and content designers. And maybe even no one notices it, but it will really eat us up inside, or at least it does me. So these coping strategies are not your content strategy, I think, and doing nothing about this stuff is not free of any risk either. So we've seen in our own work that if you leave these problems unattended, they just grow bigger and they're harder and more expensive to undo later. So you really just have to deal with these things and take them on.
I'm laughing at Sarah's comment in the chat. Coping strategies are not content strategy, which is great. Over one of the surprises, I think, over the last 7 years, even with the progress that we have made at Intuit, is that it's still easier to get tools than it is to get headcount. Everyone is struggling for headcount. The designers, the PMs, PED, marketing, everyone has the same complaint about not having enough people to do the work. And so once I started advocating for tools instead of people, we actually got more attention. More people started listening. My boss was listening because it started to sound like content was in charge of driving a transformation to address the issues of scale and quality rather than just growing a bigger team. So it was much easier for my boss to support us getting new tools than it was for her to support us getting new people. And it wasn't just my boss. We also found that we found an engineering VP who actually agreed to pay for half of our tools, a really huge annual contract on a big subscription tool, because they also cared about scale and quality. And so when we were talking about these issues and how we thought that we could use some tools to solve them, we actually got more resources than we had before. But you have to take the lead. You have to lead through content. So we need to stop complaining about, head count or content errors or these things that other people don't care about as much as we do, and realize that these issues of scale and quality are ours to fix, and no one else is going to come along and magically fix them for us. So we have to take ownership of those as our issues to fix. The risk, Jen just mentioned it, but the risk of not doing it is that you'll always be a support organization for other teams. You won't be in control of content or your function, and others won't see you as in control of your content. The benefit of doing it is that you have finally ownership over your content issues, and you shift from being a contributor to being a strategic driver.
So like being a driver, well, like we aren't PMs. We didn't have any PMs, and like in no way are we anything near engineers. But as content design leaders, we've just stepped up, stepped in, and do whatever it takes to deliver that awesome content. And honestly, I can say it's great because it feels really liberating to just, it's like, okay, I can do kind of PM type of work for myself and my team without the actual burdens of being a PM. So no one's going to invite us to a product review meeting and have us talk about writing tools. No one's going to hold us to profit and loss or give us any kind of big pressure of being like a big company bet or something like that. So what's really nice about being your driver is that you can really self-manage to a greater extent, and that's really fun and empowering actually. We've been able to do a lot of things with our tools and systems at Intuit, and there were no PMs involved in this. We just stepped up and took the lead on this stuff, and like, if we can do it, we're just writers, you guys can do it too. We've completely re-platformed the content at Intuit, brought in new content management systems, migrated a bunch of old ones off to one centralized system. We brought in a taxonomy management platform, an AI writing assistant, which was super cool, and text analysis, some really niche content and writing tools that we developed in-house as well with some of our partners, and used that for tagging and curation. But I don't want to talk today about actually selecting or implementing these kinds of tools. We want to focus just on that first step, which is really maybe the hardest, just getting the resources and the commitments and support so that you can start doing these kinds of things for your team. So how you can make this happen? Raise your hand out there if your tools do what you want them to do and you just love them. Anybody? And then raise your hand if you've been a part of a team or a part of a project where you brought in some new ones. So anybody has done that? Couple. All right, cool. And then if you want to just type in the chat too, what's the most challenging thing about tools for you and your team and your organization today? We'd love to know what some of the things are that you're challenged with.
Getting IT to approve, security. Yep, we dealt with that for sure. Adoption. Yep, security again. Integration, setup, getting people to use them.
Yeah, I think these are common problems that maybe we can all help each other with. You know, I'm just finishing a 4-month security review of a tool myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've all been there. Those are great. We can definitely go through, address some of these things and talk more at the end too. I'd like to dig into some of these topics. So here is like a project plan. These are the things you need to do to get that support and resourcing to get some tools. So like, obviously, you're going to do a lot of research, just trying to like, define what's the problem and what's the opportunity that's there if you solve it, like having a more consistent voice. Maybe it's scaling your tiny team, normalizing terminology, improving your content taxonomy or search results, or maybe it's actually helping your users complete tasks in your product. You can really dig in and start to define these problems and put some more shape to them. And then, you know, you want to go out there and find out what tools are there, what could we buy, what exists today that might help us with this, and what do they cost, of course. And then you're going to go out and gather some data so that you have some evidence about the size and scope of these problems. And like Tina and I have looked at about any report we could get our hands on, really, like search queries, click paths, call drivers, user testing, content audits. It really helps us like understand what's the cost of the problem and the cost of having like maybe even if our content is lagging a bit in performance, just to be able to quantify these things. So when you're talking to other people, you've done your research and you have some proof points and talking points that are grounded in data. I think, probably the hardest part is mobilizing stakeholders and partners. And really this situation happens pretty much when you need help to develop or implement or integrate your tool, or maybe you're onboarding some other teams off an old tool to your new one. How are you going to convince these folks that your tool project is something that should be added to their list? But really just keep asking for help is a big step in this plan, and you can do it. Actually, you can get the resources and then like us, stop crying. Of course, it's never this tidy or linear even in real life, but I think if you work on all of these things, you can get there, and we've been able to do that. And I will say, like, full like caveat here, I think there is definitely a bit of chance and luck to this whole problem. Even if you have a plan, there's two things that are out of your control and really can feel kind of random. And one of those things is money. And there might be many reasons why you don't get the money. Could be something just like a simple bureaucratic thing, like we didn't request the budget in time for the fiscal year planning or something, or didn't get the right cost center or something like this. And it could be maybe that content and writing is less important at this moment for tech investments. But these are just realities. And I know for myself, it's really hard not to take it personally or like as some insult to content design, but it's not, just like breathe, Jen. The second thing is timing. you might get lucky and ask at the right time, but if you don't, just wait it out. We were told so many times that, well, the company's just not there. We're not there yet. Or our team's not ready to work on this. And we've been told no very squarely by some teams. And just like a year later, they come back and say, oh, yes, let's make it happen right now. So, that's another problem, but these things happen, and don't let that feeling of chance or like, you never know how it's going to go. Don't let that stop you from trying or just put you in a bad mood. We managed to be in the right place at the right time. So it does happen, and we can attest to that. So based on the work that we've done, we've got some tips that we can share with you guys. Is what made it happen for us? What did we wish we'd known sooner? What are the things that no one told us? And hopefully it can help you with your tool issues as well.
And the first is really just owning the problem. And I've mentioned this already, but we do need to accept that no one else is coming to fix content issues for us, because no one else cares about them as much as we care about them. So we really do have to step up and take ownership of the issue and make it, if your job description doesn't say anything about selecting or implementing content tools, then write it in, rewrite your job description, write your own goals, make it part of your job, put yourself on the hook, tell your boss that this is part of your job and that it's going to be in your goals for the year, and recognize that this is going to turn you into a more strategic content leader. So this is good for you. This is good for the whole content team, and it's going to be good for the company.
Second tip is start before it starts. So the opportunities to get new tools may seem like they're far and few between, but keep looking for them. And until they do, it's great to just read about tools. You can connect with vendors and request demos and talk to them. You can talk to people who use their tools. You can ask engineers at your company for their opinions, or just ask them questions. You can brainstorm with your teams about potential approaches to the problems, but don't do it necessarily with the goal of like solving for it early on. Like, that's not the main reason to do it. The main reason to do this at this early stage is just to establish those relationships with people that you work with and may have a stake in the content, just to like lay the groundwork for future collaboration. So when you do get that green light and you're going to get that funding and your new tool, you won't lose any time getting started, and you'll just really walk into that tooling project with an informed perspective. And it's really important because no one else will be representing content needs but you. I mean, like, this was hard for me to imagine, but actually, like, I'm there, so I better have my own opinion about these things, because no one else is going to speak to that.
Number 3 is about reframing the problem. So when you're looking at internal processes and tools, it's easy to talk about things too narrowly. We were guilty, I know, of talking about our own problems, kind of how long the work takes, how difficult it is to fix errors once they're introduced in the product or on websites. And these were really framed as problems for us, and were complaints about how hard it was to get our jobs done, instead of problems for the business and problems for our customers. So as an example of that, a few years ago, there was an error in a UI screen, and it was an accounting term, which seemed like an easy thing to fix, but it turned out we needed engineers to fix it, which took 3 months to fix. It was literally taking the space out of 2 words. It should have been 1 word, and it was a typical accounting term, and so it was important. But it took 3 months, and we held that up for a long time as an example of just how hard it was to get our jobs done. Why does this take 3 months? You know, this is so frustrating. This is so infuriating that we can't fix these little things like a space. And that wasn't really getting us anywhere. People weren't really standing up to listen to our complaints about how hard it was to get our jobs done. But when we started talking, instead, we reframed the issue and started talking about how many engineers had to comment on that one JIRA ticket, which was nine people taking screenshots. And that's a very expensive space when 9 engineers have to comment over the course of 3 months. And when we started taking screenshots of what customers and accountants were saying on Twitter and on Facebook about how Intuit doesn't understand simple accounting terminology, that looks pretty bad for an accounting product. So when the issues were reframed as business issues and customer issues rather than content, this is hard, making it hard for us to do our jobs, we actually got more people paying attention. People aren't that sympathetic to hearing about content, talking about how hard it is to do our jobs.
Not at all, not at all. And that goes with the next tip, which is just repeat it. I think getting to a shared reality of the problem takes a lot of conversations at many levels, across many boundaries. And I know I used to think that, oh, if I just ask them once, we'd all agree to do something about it. Well, or on the other hand, if I kept asking, like, I would be the most annoying person at work for sure. And they would just like hide when they saw me coming. But really, like, I guarantee you, no one is remembering how many times you've asked the way that you do. So like, I just like, oh, I know I've talked to them about this 5 times, but to them, it might as well be the first. So just these things take time to absorb into like the group kind of awareness and consciousness. So just keep repeating the story without losing enthusiasm. And I know, like, for us, even the first few meetings with any one group was always just kind of like a warm up to the real discussion. So it's just something to think about when you're putting together your timelines. It takes time. Next tip is create stakeholders. I know for us, there was no one banging down our doors, like solve these writing problems. We had to go and search for stakeholders. And we looked for them in the problem, the solution, or really both. I think I've made the mistake of looking for folks in the solution, like, hey, so you love WordPress, right? And you can get a lot more opportunity to find stakeholders if you look at the problem and the more generic solution. So like meeting with groups and just asking, like, hey, does this cause issues for your team? And what if you didn't have this problem? How would you benefit? And just really starting the discussion that way. And then after you find your people, find out where they stand on these questions and learn to see from their perspective and how they might be impacted by tool or system changes, either positively or negatively. I know, for example, like with Writer, we also got support to purchase like an AI writing tool, and it was able to check error messages in UX copy that designers or PMs or engineering people would write and provide these language checks. And it could reduce the amount of mistakes and rework that goes into localization and a lot of the inconsistencies that we might be very sharp-eyed on into the experience. And so like looking at it from that larger perspective, like, oh, look, this can help us all. Like if we start to talking to different teams and hearing about what's a pain for them. And you might even find some unexpected allies or advocates. I know that for us, just going around and meeting with people, we discovered all kinds of things that we didn't know about that we could use in other projects as well. Like we would have never met the team that owns this visual regression testing system. Like, what is that? This basically takes screenshots of the product automatically, like right before it releases it. And so, hey, wow, I've got this whole library of images that could be used if we wanted for help documentation. So you just never know where that's going to go. But in my opinion, it's always just a worthwhile thing to get out and talk. Tip 6 is understand the effort. I would say don't minimize what you're asking for and show that you know what you're asking for. I think a lot of times it's easy to go talk to engineering and, you know, like, oh, I have this big idea. And like, if you haven't done your checking and talking with them and understand like how much work that is on them and where it sits among all the other things that they've been asked to do, you can actually create more problems like for yourself in establishing that relationship with them. So, you know, you can have a nice like deck that you go and share with them and like pitch things. But if you can't like break things down into practical steps with them, you're like, we just got like big eye rolls. They really, really don't like doing some things. It's good to know what those are. Like our folks did not want us to ask them to refactor code. They hate it, or they don't want to be assigned to doing things that they consider boring. So just being able to know those things can keep you from like dropping in like an alien. I think, you know, we've definitely done that, and you can like undermine your first impression really of being a good partner. So it's something to like go and dig a little deeper than you might normally to be able to go past that first conversation.
Influence is super closely related to what Jen was just talking about in terms of stakeholders and understanding the effort. So influence is the most important tool that you have. It's your ability to move people towards your goal, and it requires you to have a relationship with them and for you to care about their goals too. Technology and tool projects always are going to involve many, many cross-functional partners and groups and lots of decision-making between them. And so your relationship and your reputation as a partner is going to impact how much progress you make with them. And it takes time. Building relationships takes time, but it's worth it. It's valuable and it pays off. And on the topic of people being, you know, more important than the technology, I would point to Jen, because I knew that I didn't have necessarily the technical acumen to influence an engineering organization, but I could see that Jen did. She had the passion for it and the ability. She knew how to talk to engineers. And so if you don't feel like you have the skills, find people who do. Invest in people who have the passion for the systems and the tools.
And lastly, just stay strong. Getting support takes some conviction and persistence and time, and just stay optimistic. It can definitely happen. And even if it's been a year of trying and talking and researching, it's okay. That's common, I think. Just hang in there. You can connect with peers like us in forums like meetups, and find out what other people are doing, and commiserate, share things that you've learned. And you know, doing this kind of work to me is also just a great opportunity to really stretch and grow, to really challenge myself, like, oh, I can do more actually, and I don't have to limit myself to a role or a job description. Like I can just step into this and make, like, help bring our whole organization to another level. And that's just super meaningful, and it feels great at the end of the day. So that's our set of tips. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jen and Tina. I think I speak for everyone when we say loud applause, which isn't loud virtually, but yeah, hope you can hear it. And yeah, I mean, we're getting a lot of positive feedback in the chat, just FYI. And I think now would be the time for like the Q&A session. So like, I've gotten a couple of questions that I will start out by asking or throwing at you. And then maybe if anyone else comes to, has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or, raise your hand and ask them yourselves. Maybe we can start a discussion here. All right, but here's one question that came up. Let me find it, sorry. Here we go. Okay, so the second tip that you guys mentioned was start before it starts, right? And what if I come into the team and the company and its processes and strategic goals are already set? Like, how can I start before it starts in that case?
Oh, I said, just like let them go do their thing. That's fine, because that whole discussion is going to come up again, either quarterly or yearly at your company, which is fine. So that gives you time to go out on your own and start doing some research and talking to people and forming that, I'm that content expert, here's my point of view, start getting all of that together. Then when this question comes up about priorities and funding and things, like, you're ready. Like, let's talk about that. And I can, like step into getting my stuff, our team stuff on the list.
So use the time. Sorry.
I was just going to add that you're often not going to directly see content goals written into company goals or organizational goals. You just won't see it. And that's why I wanted to talk about really that first tip, which is own it. It needs to be your goal. If you don't see it in the company goals, then you make it your goal, and you drive it. And then you will find, as you're developing your argument and your rationale, you just may find connections to other people's goals. And you may find that there actually are some bigger corporate goals that you can attach to. So just as an example of ours, when I think back a few years ago, we started investing very, very heavily in brand. We had a new VP and she was, going to be putting a ton of money into some new brand development and brand campaigns. And I was able to just kind of hitch onto that by now my talk track with my stakeholders was, we're investing millions of dollars in brand this year. It's really important that, when we're developing a brand, to have perfect execution every time through every touch point. And we do that through voice and tone and having very high quality content, throughout the funnel. So I was able to kind of attach myself to those bigger corporate goals.
So yeah, don't just focus on one of the tips you gave, but kind of like incorporate all the tips into one. So start, connecting the dots in the company and think on a big scale. I like that. Yeah. So we've gotten 2 questions regarding tools. So do you guys have any tools that you guys could recommend, or like, that you use daily that you could share with us?
Yeah, sure. I would say, start with the problem. If you're looking to go out and find something, start with the problem rather than the tool. Like, I think it's easy to be like, oh, I love Adobe AEM. Or somebody else loves Adobe AEM, but actually might not be the right thing for what you need to do. So really, like, fall in love with the problem, they always say in UX, right? Fall in love with your content problem and then look at those tools. But given that, I mean, you're going to find different kind of categories and problems to solve. And there are definitely sets of tools out there within these categories. So like, for instance, for taxonomy management, we are using Pool Party. And for text analysis, we're using Sketch Engine. For writing assistant and string editing, we use a tool called Writer. It's very powerful. What am I missing, Tina?
I think you basically hit them, and probably the one out of those that has the most like universal applicability among this group might be Writer. And that, to Jen's point, was about solving a couple of problems. One being the issue of not being able to get into the UI and make changes in the UI without getting 9 engineers to comment on a JIRA ticket and taking 3 months. And so one of the capabilities of Writer, the Writer tool, is allowing string editing for content designers. And the other capability that is something that they are developing aggressively right now is the AI writing assistance. And so that was about taking our style guide, our terminology, and making it something that others in the company, especially people who aren't writers, so this was really solving the issue of scale and quality. We live and breathe our style guide and our terminology. We know it by heart. You don't usually have to remind the content designers about our punctuation rules and our capitalization rules, but there's a gazillion marketers out there who don't know those rules, don't care about them, don't think about them. They don't know about our punctuation guidelines. And so having a tool like Writer, which analyzes the content that they're writing and gives them feedback on it and tells them what is in and out in our style guide, as well as gives them other tips on readability. That has turned out to be a super powerful tool. And that really is about us using a tool to help other people who don't care about content and quality content as much as we do, and getting that quality and those guidelines pushed out beyond our immediate team so that we could be influencing more than just the writers on our own team.
I think we have a follow-up question on the whole tool discussion here from Kate. She's asking, how do you handle the labor cost of a new tool in terms of setup and maintenance? I've always found the money to be there, but as Tina, you mentioned, headcount isn't, and everyone is busy, and getting something like Writer off the ground and running it is a lot of work and no one has time for it. And yeah, she's just asking how you guys approach this, if you have some experience you can share there.
I can say that as a manager who was, managing a small team of writers and realizing that we were going to need some assistance with tools and guidelines, that it actually meant spending some of my own team headcount. So what I, from a practical perspective, what I did was, when a writer, a content designer left, instead of backfilling that person with another content designer, I backfilled it with a systems person. And my rationale was, I can't keep, I'm never going to get the headcount to scale the team to be as big as they need to be. I need systems, guidelines, and tools for us to be able to scale appropriately. So it was kind of, taking my own resources and reallocating them into systems and tools. Sarah is on the call here, and she is really 100% dedicated to systems and guidelines for our team. So that is one headcount that is not doing any writing for QuickBooks or doing any UI or writing any marketing pages or anything like that. But she's incredibly important to keeping all of those writers in sync.
I guess that links back to like what you guys mentioned during the talk as well, right? That people are more important than the tools most of the time. And also that kind of links back to the building influence kind of tip that you gave, which leads me to a comment that Meredith jotted down in the chat, which I thought was interesting. It's not exactly a question, but just a comment. She mentioned that building influence before you need to use it, she experienced the benefits of that only just recently. Meredith, if you want to talk about your experience yourself, feel free to just speak up.
Sure.
Great.
Yeah, so I had a vocabulary or a sort of terminology tool that was intended to help the whole company align on specific terms because we were using random things all over the place, and asked the HR team to use it in onboarding. And I found out by checking in with a few new people that it wasn't being included. So I was just sort of sending it myself, sent it to someone new and welcomed them to the company. And months later, needed to hire someone in Europe, I discovered that that person was the recruiter in Europe, and she bumped my rec up to the top of the list because of what I had done. So it was a fantastic, unexpected benefit, but it really like drove home the point for me. So yeah, that's it.
Relationships matter. Yeah.
More so than the tools most of the time.
Yeah.
But we do have a couple of questions or another question as a follow-up to the tool discussion we had before. Again, from Kate. She'd love to hear about how your content tools intersect or don't with your design systems team. So I guess that's a topic that's relevant for a lot of us working with design teams as writers. Yeah.
Sure, I can talk to that a bit. So like currently Spotify has a design system, and honestly didn't have a whole lot of integrated content and writing guidance or capability. And that's one of the things that we're looking at doing now is using Writer with the snippets feature where we can reuse pieces of copy. So if you think about Spotify, we've got over 40 platforms. Our product is available on exercise bikes, refrigerators, any apps, watches. I mean, it's all over the place. And we don't want to recreate or spend the work to rewrite these things. And so in the same way that the design system is component driven, we're really looking at creating these snippets and using Writer to manage those and to be able to just basically fetch that into Figma for the components. And yeah, it's going to be hugely impactful for our use cases. Yeah.
We also, so the Writer tool that we've mentioned a few times will integrate and actually will integrate with your design system and can be the source of truth for your style guide if that's what you want it to be. We actually have published our own WordPress site, which is our public facing view of our guidelines. But the Writer tool does allow you to manage your terminology, define your rules, set the reading level, set some voice and tone attributes, and then you can use the end user, so our internal employees can use either a plugin in Google, which will review their content and provide the scoring and give them feedback. Also works within Figma, so the tool that all of our designers are using. And within Figma, we'll be giving anyone, any designers, whether they're content designers, interaction designers, or visual designers, feedback on the content in the Figma files. And the same scoring and the same guidelines that we have in Google Docs.
Cool. Another question more about teams, or like the opposite of teams. We have a question, what if I'm the only writer on the team? should I focus on getting tools to be efficient in my work and then to be able to show like the benefits of having writers in the team, or should I focus, or what should my focus be basically if I'm the only writer on the team?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem for the one writer teams is always going to be scale. You know, that whole problem of there's never enough of us. Well, for sure, for the one writer team, they'll never be able to get all the work done. That's just a reality. There's always going to be more people who need a piece of you than you can handle. And so your number one job, I think, needs to be providing the strategies, and often this is through guidelines, through examples, through training, for other people to help you get the work done, because one writer can't handle it all. You'll just get buried under requests. So I think your primary responsibility needs to be providing that guidance for others to create content too. And so whether you do that through tools or you do it through lots and lots of documentation, that can be another way. Yeah, so I'm not sure really whether it's tools or it's, you know, like that kind of manual, get it off the ground documentation. That's usually where it all starts. You know, you do a lot of documentation until you get to a point where a tool can help you manage it all and share it all out. What do you think, Jen?
Yeah, 100%. I think so. Unless you're using free tools, I don't think you know, it's going to do a whole lot for you as a one-person team. So that documentation is going to be really important.
Maybe one last question, again in the direction of tools, specific tools that you guys use. But Carolina is asking, what tools do you have? Any tools to recommend regarding like content inventory?
Well, I think probably everyone here, I'm guessing, since it's UX and content design, is probably more working on the product side, which of course means that you've tried things like, what is it, gather content or something, find out, oh, these only work in the web. Yeah, that's sad. It's definitely trickier for us on the product side. I would recommend just going, maybe if you have a localization contact that you could talk to. A lot of times they can, you know, like pull source strings for you that are in English and give you at least a bin of content to do your inventory and auditing on. But you know, the other thing that we've done is actually just do like scraping code, which is not sexy, definitely messy, but yeah, I don't think there's a tool out there that works really great for this on the product side. So
Yep, a lot of manually dropping things into spreadsheets and realizing that it's not a true inventory. It's, you know, a snapshot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we can all agree on that. All right,
Still
I have
useful.
one last. Yeah, it is. I mean, we need to start somewhere, right? I think we have one last question, if that's all right with you. And if anyone wants to chip in here and turn on their camera or their mic, feel free. But here's one last question. Do you guys have a strategy how you guys go about testing new tools? For instance, in terms of involving enough people to figure out if something is really useful, but not involving too many, etc. So how do you guys go about, you know, integrating new tools into a team?
yeah, I think it probably depends a little bit on the tool and the capability of the tool, like how deep you need to go. in testing. So like, when we bought the writing assistant, we were able to just run some basic user testing sessions with our writers and collect feedback and, talk to their customer success team about it and things like that. But if you're going into something really intense, like with a CMS or taxonomy management, you're probably going to have to go get more folks involved in testing, like from engineering and figuring out like what could be a small proof of concept and like run that as a project. Or you could at least get a few engineers to help you. Maybe you get a PM for this one, or at least talk to someone about like how can we define success for this proof of concept, and really running a small test on some kind of subset of your content in like development space or something that's not live on production, and seeing what you find out, and how the tool performs for your use cases.
I think that links back nicely to like your point of, the people are the most important thing. And if it works for the people, then it's probably a good tool. Doing usability tests with the UX writers. I like that. Yeah, I think if anyone would like to like chip in right now and have like a one last question live, please feel free. And if not, that would be the end of today's session, I think. With that, yeah, thank you so much, Jen and Tina, for being here, for answering all our questions. Like I mentioned before, like we've really gotten, like if you guys were checking the chat, there was so much interaction in the chat as well, and so much positive feedback. So thanks so much for being here. Everyone's mentioning how helpful this was.